Hello everyone, this is SWTOR here, back with another Star Wars Republic video. So I'm just going to get right into this. So this is a guide video on how to exactly counter a Commando slash Mercenary in a PvP. I'm going to be going over the Commando variant of course, this advanced class and how to actually counter them in their defensives and all that other stuff. And I mean, obviously, with this video, once again, I'm talking mainly about Commando, but obviously, the mirror class is a merc, so all the same stuff will apply, just depending on, what actual faction you're on. Just a quick disclaimer, these are some basic tips about, actually countering this advanced class. Also, another disclaimer is I'm actually essentially a Commando main, but I feel like, I could provide some insight because I'm okay with, basically saying how to counter a class that has some crazy abilities that do some absolutely crazy things. I just felt like it would be a good video to kind of like go over, how exactly to counter this advanced class in this current state of the game. So I hope you guys enjoy this Star Wars Republic guide video. As always, if you guys enjoy these videos, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in this guide. Alrighty guys, so let's get into this right now. So obviously I'm currently on the planet of Makeb. This video is going to be pretty straightforward for what it is. Obviously I'm just going to be standing here. I'm going to be showing off some of the defensives and how to actually counter them. So obviously with Commandos it's going to be definitely different because obviously it's kind of like player versus player. You don't really know what a player is going to do. But when it comes down to the basic abilities of a Commando, I feel like I can kind of like provide some insight on how to actually counter some of the abilities that some people may actually deem OP. So we're going to start with the most obvious one. So as of currently recording this video with the 5.0 patch, or technically 5.4, we do have this reflective shield. So a lot of people obviously know that when you activate the shield it reflects damage, but it also heals the Commando. Now usually, at least from my experience, and obviously with playing Commando, it depends on completely different situations, but typically when you're somewhat low, you're gonna activate this at the last section. Just try to get some quick heals that deal some reflective damage. So what you're going to want to do is whenever you see a Commando activate this bubble right here, it'll look something like this. You can either completely ignore them, because if you ignore them, obviously you aren't going to reflect or give them heals, but you can of course AoE them down. A lot of people don't realize this, but if you use any like area wide attack, for example just like this, if you were to attack me right now, I would take damage while you don't get any reflect damage and I actually don't get healed. A lot of people don't realize that, but if a Commando decides to pop a reflect and they're extremely low, you will see it sometimes because some people obviously know how to do it, but you can just simply AoE them down and they will just completely be stuck. Now that's a pretty straightforward right there. We have the next one, which is Adrenaline Rush. Now obviously you can't really counter this. Essentially what this does is when you get to really low as Commando, you will get an adrenaline rush, which allows you to heal extremely rapidly, basically just allowing you to be a human tank, essentially for quite a long time. Now, what some people don't realize, or what some people don't actually do, is if you have enough DPS, this especially works in 8v8s, but if you have enough DPS, you can basically burst on the Commando and take him out. Because when you do sustain damage, obviously I'm healing through that. I'm just like occasionally I'm just healing at a set value. But if you get enough people and you burst on them, they can actually die pretty rapidly. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Now this is also incredibly useful because sometimes people won't actually pop their adrenaline rush until like they're right about to die. So if they're at like 5% HP, they decide not to actually become fired up. Then you can just quickly activate all your damage the second you see it actually pop up on their screen, and they will die pretty rapidly. But most people won't actually do that. They will get kind of prepared beforehand so they can live for a bit longer. Next we have the reactive shield. So pretty straightforward. It increases damage reduction by 25% for 12 seconds. The catch here is, as of currently with recording this video, you get these healing probes. So every time you get attacked, you will get healed as a Commando, and obviously since you're getting healed as a Commando, you're just going to be getting insane health just all the way back up. Essentially, the more you attack a Commando, the more health they get, and once they get to a high amount of stacks, they basically go from 1% HP all the way to 100. So it is a bit of a crazy ability, I won't lie. And to be honest, the way to really counter this is there's two ways, which I mean, kind of the options are a bit disappointing in my opinion, because it is kind of like pointless. It's like, what the heck? I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. But one thing you can do is you can stop DPS. I know that a lot of people don't really like this, because obviously, you know, if you stop DPS on a commando, they're just going to continue to heal up because they have all these healing probes. So sometimes people will kind of like time stuns, so they will stun a commando. He'll activate his reactive shield, and guess what? He's just completely a sitting duck. He can't do absolutely anything. So you can obviously do that. What some people like to do is, if a commando is already used his adrenaline rush, you can just simply completely kind of like take the risk and try to kill them really fast. It does work sometimes, but you will get unlucky, because if they reach the high amount of stacks and they get their health back, then it is kind of a, kind of an oh well situation. You're back to full HP. But what I would definitely recommend, and what a lot of people do, which is pretty smart, is sometimes you see it with like Sorks, they'll, whirlwind you. And that's something I would highly recommend, is if you see a commando that's pretty low, or you don't really want to take the risk and try to kill him, then you can of course just stun him, just completely stun lock him and ruin his day. Because what he likely wants you to do, he wants you to just straight up attack him, just to give him all the HP back. At least in my opinion, I mean, that's what I personally do. I mean, it does reduce damage, but sometimes you'll have people just completely attacking you, and it just gets all your health back, which is definitely very OP. But once you kind of like realize that what you can do to counter it, you can make the reactive shield essentially worthless. Now we have another ability. I know it's crazy with all these defensives and such, but we have the propulsion round. So occasionally you'll see a commando, he's just getting completely attacked, his day's being completely destroyed by someone. He'll just activate this ability, and with this ability he just gets launched back just straight up immediately, just no questions asked, just trying to leave. Now, one thing that you can actually do is, if you read this tooltip, and obviously if you're on a commando you won't see this, but if you decide to immobilize an enemy or hinder them, essentially like, stun lock them or trap them, like for example with the snipers, they just shoot your legs and then you're stuck, you can obviously cleanse this, which is definitely a really bad deal. But if I remember correctly, there is a utility for that you can kind of like, if Sorks decide to actually like hinder your abilities, you can try to escape. But in which case, a lot of commanders won't actually have that option. So you can just try to hinder their abilities. So once they can't actually move, they'll try to activate all the defensives. I've seen it happen before. Sometimes, I'm occasionally someone who does this, which is not really the smartest strategy. But either they're going to activate all their abilities, just praying that you actually decide to attack them and just continue to try and hurt them, or they're just a sitting duck and you can just kind of ruin their day, or just kind of like force them to waste defensives, which is definitely a pretty smart move. So if you can try to stun lock commandos or kind of like trap them, then it can work out pretty well, because they will try to escape. Usually the combo is use propulsion round and then hold the line. So with hold the line, it tries to kind of, I say, grants immunity from all the movement and parrying effects. And to be honest, once again, I mean, with this ability, you can stun lock them and it will still have an effect. So just keep that in mind. If a commander decides to pull a fast one and try to escape, you can stun them. And once again, you can just completely put them on lockdown. Another tip, of course, when stunning a commando, they can still activate their reflective shield. This is usually, I call it kind of like the hidden threat, essentially, because you can stun a commando, he's going to be dying, just his day is completely over, and then out of nowhere, bam, he just pops a reflective, and you're just healing him up. So if you're, if you haven't seen him use his reflect in a while, or you actually haven't seen it happen at all, then just be prepared, because if he gets low, he might try to pull the one trick where he, of course, activates the reflect, and just prays that you are foolish enough to actually just shoot at him. And the last main ability besides the heals, in my opinion, are of course this ability. Essentially, this is the ability that mercs and commandos can use to actually drop their threat. Now, they did actually nerf this with the recent patch, but essentially when you do activate this, it gives you charges that reduce the incoming, or actually kind of absorbs the incoming tech or force attack. It is a very interesting, I say, like, ability. You only get 2 stacks currently with it, but obviously if you have 2 stacks, you literally just eat 2 hits. Just literally nothing happens to you. Now with this counter, I actually honestly don't know really what a counter to this is. Essentially you just activate this, and then like I said, I mean, it absorbs the next incoming direct force or tech attack. There's not much you can really do to this. It doesn't last too long, so I guess if you want to wait it out, it would be an option, but I would just recommend not even caring about it and then just constantly going after them. Now, one final tip which can be applied with essentially any class, which is interrupt. So especially with a gunnery commando like myself, if you see someone deciding to basically spam grav round, just hoping to do some damage, or tracer missile, you can actually interrupt them. Now, obviously with me, you know, I just try to use backup abilities, just trying to work without it. But sometimes people will panic, because if you decide to interrupt a DPS commando's grav round, sometimes they'll be like, you know, oh hey, this is my main ability, what am I gonna do? And if stuff is on cooldown, they're gonna be like, oh well, what is actually gonna happen here? And obviously, you know, you can also interrupt the heals, because as a commando, even if you aren't a healer, you can use a medical probe constantly. If you are a healer as well, and you are spec'd into heals, and you decide to actually supercharge, you don't get a cooldown or advanced medical probe, so you'll just see people just, you know, hammering down the medical probes, just never ending, just healing people up, and it's not really fun to work with. So you can interrupt people, you can stun them. I believe with advanced medical probe, when they do activate that, I'm not 100% certain on this because I'm not a DPS commando, but I believe they might not be able to get interrupted at that time, so you can stun lock them. But I mean, just make sure you know your interrupts and know that they are always an option right there, and it's a very great way to actually shut someone down. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, essentially, you know, this quick little guide video, just kind of going over, you know, how to exactly, you know, counter a commando slash merc. Once again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.